I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Thank you all for coming. First order of business is the organization of the board for 2013-14, which is an action item. So the table is open for nomination for president and vice president.
I'd like to make a nomination for Rick Whitlow to be president.
Second.
What about vice president?
How about Jeff Martin? Make a motion
Jeff?
for Jeff
I
Martin.
would, I'd say,
Have Rich.
you want to amend your motion?
I'll amend my motion. I'll make a motion for Rick Whitlow to be president and Jeff Martin to be vice president.
Is that okay? I kind of blindsided you. Okay, Miss Hutton, you owe me $150. I want to see the receipt. We have a little wager going on there.
I want half of that.
I'd hold out for splitting it, Jeff. Wow.
It's going to a worthy cause, so just feel really good about it.
Do we have a second to Rich's
Second.
motion? Any questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Thank you, Rich. Everybody have a chance to look at the board docs before the meeting?
Yes, I did.
Sylvia, were you and Rich able to get on okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. All righty. I move that we approve the agenda and the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any question or discussions? Very good. Resignations of transportation employees Gawler and Bradshaw. Any questions or discussions there? I move that we accept their resignations as presented.
That's covered under the consent.
That's all.
Oh, that's under the consent. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Audience.
Anybody wish to speak from the audience? Danielle? All righty. Dr. Bagby and I put together a little presentation for everybody in the board and the attendants here. I'll stand up here. Okay. You have your little clicker?
Yep.
Okay. This is, Boards on Board is a program that's conducted by the Institute for Healthcare Improvement out in Washington and headed by a guy named Don Berwick, who's a really smart guy who was the head of Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And so Dr. Bagby and I kind of played off of the title here. So the presentation is mostly for Sylvia and Rich, but also for our other board members because there's some really good learning points in here. And for everybody in the audience who wishes to engage in leading and learning, I think there's some good ideas here. So I'll talk first and then Randy will talk if he can get our clicker working. If not, we'll just sit down. All right. So Randy and I like quotes, so I thought this was important at the beginning of the year. Leaders are responsible for everything in the organization, especially everything that goes wrong. So I think the key to that is that as leaders, we need to be really aware of what's going on in the organization, and we need to do everything that we can to be educated and learn about the organization so that we don't make bad decisions. So the outline that we're going to discuss here, the success triangle, 5 steps to board engagement, and then 4 ways to do it. So the success triangle, every board is a great team. Some of the board members have seen this last year. I think every great team really balances on trust. And with trust, everybody becomes vulnerable to each other. Everybody can engage in open and honest communication. And everything is focused on the topic at hand. It's not focused on a personal agenda. It's not focused on a personality, but it's focused on the topics at hand. When the team gets engaged, the conversation can get really lively, and if you look at that from an outsider's perspective, it can almost look like there's a lot of conflict and anger happening between the board members, but it's all based on trust. And so nothing is personal, nothing is directed at an individual, it's all directed at the topic. And I think the beauty, and Randy and I have talked about this, the beauty of having 7 individual board members from various walks of life in various stages of life is that we get 7 really diverse perspectives. And so if everybody speaks up on an issue, it makes for a lively discussion, and if it's focused on the topic, usually we can come up with a really, really good outcome to that. I think the best example of that is what we did with the alcohol and drug program about 8 or 9 years ago. It was a very broad stroke with a lot of input from everybody that I think was really good for the students. It created a lot of positives for students and a lot of support for parents. So I encourage you guys to be engaged and very lively with the questions and discussions. So after engagement, we get to commitment. And with commitment, we see a lot of direction and clarity as the discussion takes place and things start moving down the road. And with direction and clarity, we move into accountability. And so we start looking at what our outcomes are, and we start measuring, our outcomes compared to what national standards may be or national best practices. I know our architects have national standards and best practices that they're constantly comparing things to. Mike is comparing his score on baseball games to the teams down south. I mean, I think good teams do that. We have to look at what the best practice is, what the outcomes are, how are we going to get there, and then we measure our success by what our outcomes are. Just plain and simple, what are our outcomes? So the other piece to the success triangle is if you look down in the bottom right, building capability really comes by everybody in the system learning. That can be from our administrators, it can be from our PLC teams, it can be from our grade level teams, learning about what the best practices are, how can they leverage best practices and evidence to make things happen. The board sits up at the top, not because they're necessarily at the top, but because they can assign priority and strategic goals, and they have the picture of what's happening in the local environment and also on the regional and the state seat. So because we're charged with managing the budget, I don't look at us as necessarily between building capability and strategy, but we have to look at both, and we have to balance that as a board to come up with a good plan. Next slide. So Randy's going to go a little bit farther than this, but there's 5 steps to engagement, and I kind of like this slide because in an educational situation and a learning environment, I'm always torn by whether you should lead or control or push. And so you might look at this and say that the dogs are the students and they're being controlled by the 2 people, but it may just be the other way around. The people may be being led by the dogs, and the dogs are really kind of going where they want to go. But I think it also points out some personalities. Leading should be a hand-in-hand engagement with our students. Sometimes we have students that are a little bit feisty, sometimes we have little chihuahuas over on the right, and sometimes we have big slobbery ones on the left. But the key is to try to engage all of them, and sometimes learning happens best when people lead, and sometimes learning happens best when people are controlled a little bit and maybe reined in a little bit for the purpose.
If there were 2 more dogs there, it'd be like the Bagley family.
So Randy's going to talk about the rest of this here.
Okay, 5 steps to board engagement, and real quick, I'm just going to move quick, and you guys can interrupt me. Matt's forgot more than I know about boards and committees and so forth. But they have 5 steps to board engagement. Number 1 being establish the mission, vision, and strategy. Build the foundation for effective leadership systems, building will, ensure access to ideas, and attend relentlessly to execution. I like this slide here. It's really busy. There's lots of words and so forth in there, but the main part, my laser doesn't work, is looking for the direction, the alignment, the balance of all these concepts and so forth. And really, where everyone should start is probably number 2, establish the foundation. And if you look at it closely, it's talking about building relationships, developing future leaders. We're always trying to educate people and so forth, reframing our operating values. These things are all about culture and working with people, communications. And so I always tell everyone, build the foundation with relationships. If you can do that, and boards are in a really precarious situation. I mean, you're our direct tie to the community. You were elected by the community, you're the voice of the community, and we can use your position to do better at some of the things we're talking about as school district employees. The other thing is direction, and Dr. Whitlow talks a lot about alignment and getting these fractured systems in a line, getting them connected, getting the communication to go across. So you have this foundation of relationships, direction of where to go, and then you can really talk about the concepts within. Transparency, the open communication. Are we developing change agents? You know, we're the oldest dinosaur in the book, education. We've been around for over 100 years. We're really slow. We're really slow to change. Anybody want to disagree with that? Tim, you want to disagree with that?
I disagree. You guys are in the forefront of everything.
Yeah, okay, there you go. We got one vote. So, change agents, and then ideas. And one of the things that Dr. Whitlow talks a lot about that I really like is an exchange of ideas. And we can disagree, and the board members can disagree, but exchanging those ideas gets us to a deeper level of dialogue, where we're actually talking about presenting things, and sometimes we come up with ideas working together in that deep, rich dialogue that we never would have thought of on our own. So, as I was looking at this, I remembered some research that came out from the National Association of School Boards back in 2000. And then what I laid before you is a second edition that came out in 2009. Some of the same concepts, because you know what? We do a really good job of figuring out what the what is and the who sometimes. What do we need to do? Who needs to do it? When should we do it? Might be tied to our mission and so forth. We seldom get to the how, and that's one of our downfalls. And in-service, it's, we used to call it the seagull approach with in-services. Seagull fly in, drop their load, and then fly off, and we didn't do anything with it. And so what we're after is a continuity of getting to the stuff that we're talking about, and get the clicker to work. Oh, maybe I clicked too many times. So, when we talk about relationships and so forth, what I did is I grabbed a quote from the book that I gave you. School boards that understand the powerful effect that climate has on the behavior and performance of teachers and students pay attention to the human dimension of the organization. So as we talk about the what, and the who, and the goals, and the accountability, does anybody really, ask a lot of people in our community, what does that mean to you, accountability? And a lot of them will say test scores. But does it also mean giving them a hot lunch? Does it mean taking care of their social and emotional well-being? Does it mean addressing things like obesity in our schools, bullying? Accountability is a much wider scope than a lot of people, I think it's a loosely used term nowadays. Accountability, that's what we're after. If I'm a politician, I'm running for the school board, accountability is going to be one of my buzzwords. Because that's just one of the buzzwords in the community right now. So, board training, how are we going to do this? We're talking about the what and all the stuff that we need to do. Where are you going to get the training? And I wanted to point out kasb.org. You can go to their website. But every year they have summits, seminars, webinars, conventions, Leadership Academy that you can access. One of my favorite groups that this is, the parent group, is the National School Board Association. They're bigger, they have more resources, but they have lots of training available. It's actually where the key work of boards was published. Whole board training, we can do retreats, we can bring people in, we can bring it to us. So lots of training there. Here's just a snapshot of their website at KASB. You can see what my buddy John, what he's up to, what he's writing. But you can go there at any time and find these trainings, these workshops. It can be on law, collective bargaining, school funding, any of those things. And the process for school board members is just call Jan Zoll. Say, there's this thing I want to go to. It's with KASB. She'll register you, get your dues paid for it, arrange transportation if you need it. All the organization she'll do for you. So it's an open invitation, right, Dr. Whitlow?
Absolutely.
Go to any of those. I think Dr. Whitlow's goal is,
I would like everybody on the board to attend one training session this year and bring back a learning message to the board.
so, and I'll give you some more from this book here, Key Work of School Boards, later, but 10 characteristics of great boards. And I always like to put things in the present tense, if I can. And the great things about our current board is that they have purpose, and they know the roles, the personal traits, norms, they're after success, they have priorities, they're making good decisions, they're not afraid of conflict. The buzzword that Dr. Whitlow uses throughout everything that we talk about is courage, having courage to ask the tough questions. And sometimes that can be difficult, especially when Tim Newton's standing out there blowing smoke about how good Bagby is, and I'm on the front line. You know what you said? On the front line. Call him on it. Don't let him get away with that stuff. Ask him the hard questions. So, I wanted to just address a little bit about, like I said, this is a tough job you're in. School board is, lots of responsibility. So what I did is I just pulled about a third of 1 week of the headlines from Education Week, beginning June 22nd it was. And if you look at these, it'll give you a good sense of what schools deal with on a day-to-day basis. Our discipline practices, educational rights of pregnant and parenting teens. Now, I can tell you, there are still school districts out there that if you're a young lady who becomes pregnant, you're expected to drop out of school. That's not uncommon. It's uncommon in Lansing, USA, but it's not uncommon out there. Lots of issues and problems. You'll notice Kansas made the headlines last week. Districts could lose insurance if teachers are armed. There's a big to-do about that. EMC said, they made a statement, public release, said, you allow teachers to bring guns into school, we will not insure you. And the other two major insurers followed suit, including Travelers. So, and ask yourself, here's the thing, sometimes you don't just ask the hard questions, you ask yourself the hard questions. And you have to ask, do you really want teachers carrying guns? I'm here to tell you that every year in the United States, we have a teacher that physically goes off on a student. Every year. I do not want them to have a gun. So that's not all teachers. That's not bad about teachers, but there's possibilities of 15, 16-year-olds that, like Matt, when he was in high school, they could take a gun away from a teacher. Is that right? No. So you have to ask yourself those hard questions. Improving school climate, tip number 1, don't cut the climate staff. If music and art's a big cultural thing in your school, and all of a sudden the budget cuts hit, what are the first things that most school boards cut? Art and music. See, these are good headlines to think about. The last thing I wanted to tell you about these headlines is last week, obesity is a disease, rules AMA. Now, does that change, Vicki, what we're talking about with wellness and obesity in our schools? Does that put a different picture on it? And back in about 40 years ago, we started calling alcoholism a disease. I can tell you that we changed the entire treatment philosophy around that concept. Should we not be talking about this in schools? So, just food for thought. I like the acronym SUCCESS, schools, universities, and communities committed to educational success for all students. Here's the idea. We've got to open up the communication avenues. We have to talk more with all of our publics, no matter how painful it is. I sit in my office with groups of them, and sometimes they want my head on a stick when we first meet. But we have to talk. We have to get things out in the open, put it on the table. The very first thing probably is talking about goals, and I told you I like to put them in the present tense or even the past tense sometimes. It makes them more real. We're more inclined to get engaged with what that goal is about. Community engagement has become a long-standing tradition in Lansing and is the key ingredient to our evolution to a high-functioning school system. That could be a good goal. So as you think about goals, what are your personal goals? What are your goals in your organization, in your school districts? Start putting them in the present tense. Even if they're pretty far out there, that you've stretched, the stretch goals. Put them in the present tense. It'll change your thinking. That's all I have, Dr. Redlaw.
Great. Any questions? We'll check the sign up by next Monday.
Matt
guys.
thought I brought him here to talk about McPherson construction.
Did he
I
really?
really wanted him to talk to us
Okay, I have a
about
question.
it. Yeah.
All right. You guys are up.
Everybody have a chance to read their DD book and look at all the pretty pictures? Anybody have any questions from their DD book?
I like the pretty pictures.
Okay, well, we're just going to go through a quick update today, kind of where we've been and what's going on.
Did you get rid of those?
Again, our funnel of truth, as you can see, we're really starting to get down toward the bottom. We're getting into documentation. We're out of the design phase for the most part. Now it's down to how do things go together. So we're really not moving walls or replacing things. It's, man, how does this piece go with this piece and how does it really start to work? So that's where we're really at in this process. Just an update. We've been working with the city quite a bit. We've been meeting with some member of our team about once a week or multiple times a week to talk to everything from traffic log 147th to code-related items about how fire codes work and where we can have exceptions. Sanitary sewer, we're still having a big discussion about how that partnership works to bring the sanitary sewer to the site. We have come to a resolution with Water District number 8 and reached an agreement. They will supply the water for the school. We're still just waiting to finalize that, but we've come to an understanding and everybody knows where we're headed. As far as annexation, the site is now part of the city of Lansing, and we've gone through the preliminary plat process, which means kind of submitted our initial development plan, which allows us to start, going through zoning and some of the other things, and that has been approved by the Planning Commission to date. So we've started that whole process of getting all the balls rolling so that we can start digging dirt here shortly. Had a nice partnership with the city. We're meeting with them a lot and really talking about a lot of the issues that we're bringing up.
We're meeting with them tomorrow, we might mention, and just to bring them up to speed on the schedule, what's going to happen annually, you can see documents, what kind of time frame do we need out of them for permitting and inspections. We need to get them on board, make them part of the team process, so that meeting happens tomorrow morning.
As far as our schedule, just as of last week, we completed 30% of our construction documents. This is kind of the schedule that you're going to see roll out in the next couple weeks. We did break the building into 2 bid packages, and that is bid packages are what are released to the contractors to look at bidding the work. So the first package we're going to release is site grading with some on-site piping and structural concrete. So all that's just kind of some of the dirt work and none of the stuff people see. We're going to hopefully release that around July 16th. That's what out to bid means. And then there's about a month that people get to look over that and get prices ready. And then we'll take those back on August 8th and then kind of sort through those. And we'll bring those to you on August 12th for an approval of contractors to get that ball rolling.
So assuming we get a permit, we can start moving dirt in August. Be good.
So that $1 million question, when are we going to start see dirt? That's August to September right there. And
Tell
that's
them September 1, just to be safe.
that late August, early September, that's our goal to start moving dirt. Followed by that will be bid package 2. That will include the building, all the athletic fields, all the concrete and the paving, along with the remaining utilities. We're looking to put that out on September 2nd, take those bids in October, and then bring that to you guys in October for approval. So that's kind of our timeline of how all that's going to roll out. And then the next part of that is the high school to the middle school remodel. That process will start with some of those designs. after we release the high school documents. They're gonna kind of follow one right after the other, so.
And Randy, we're bringing, part of our meeting tomorrow, we're gonna bring a number of middle school schedule options to you, and that'll help dictate design parameters, obviously construction schedule and all that.
But this is still the schedule that we've been operating on for the whole premise of the bond, so we're right on task of where we said we'd be a year ago. So, just everybody, because I keep getting the question, when are you gonna see moving dirt? And when I say August, they're like, are you guys behind? No, we're right where we said we'd be, and keeping going on that. Okay, the last thing is, with our big document set, I believe our current 30% document set was 529 pages. So it's about a stack of paper about this thick to document 240,000 square feet. Didn't really know that I had the arm strength to carry that in today. It's a rather large document. Be glad you only got the little book that has pictures. McPherson has done an estimate as we've gone through this. They just completed their estimate during our 100%, based off our 100% design development documents. So we've been having a lot of conversations back and forth. As of right now, we are in budget. And by meaning in budget, we have had to make some changes to do that, but none of those changes have changed the program. We're not taking off classrooms, we're not deleting things. It's more been a kind of refinement, how you pack your suitcase the first time, it doesn't quite all fit, and take out, I think I can get rid of that extra shirt. It's kind of where we're at. We're just kind of squeezing in, getting down to the essentials. When we say we're in budget, that does mean our LEED certification. LEED is still there. We're going to go for LEED. In budget includes our zero entry community use pool area as part of the pool. And in budget includes our high wind shelter. So all kind of those items are still in there. We haven't lost any of those. An example of something we've done, as you can see, there's two plans on the bottom. Working with McPherson, we decided that it was worth about $300,000 to straighten out the curve. So you can see on the right-hand side of the page, on the left one, there's a nice little curve. On the right-hand one, there's 3 segments that make up a curve. So to you and everybody else that sees this school from the ground, nobody's going to know that's not curved anymore. Unless you decide to get in an airplane.
Helicopter view.
The helicopter view of God, looking down. He knows it's not a curve, but that's about it. So that was an example of something we worked with McPherson and saved us about $300,000.
One thing, can I interject, just since Tim's over here writing, and I want to make sure he gets this part, is that with working with the new mayor and the city administrator, we were really tight on budget there for a while, and they have stepped up and helped us be creative in some of the requirements for sewer and wastewater management, and have actually allowed a substantial amount of savings where we could keep that zero entry pool for the little kids and those kinds of things. So I wanted to make sure that, number one, that Tim got it in the newspaper, but also that the board knows that the city's working really well with the school district.
Just the last thing, as we've gone through estimates, we have added some things to an alternate list, which just allows us we know it's part of the design and it's an easy in or out thing, that on bid day, if numbers were to come in well, or that something changes with how something's being funded through the city and some of the other projects, that it allows us to take some of those, and some of those could be, adding a few more parking spots or an extra row or something like that. But we've really gone through and cut out quite a bit of money just by tightening the belt. And this is all normal. I think Kirk would always say he's never seen a project come in under budget at this stage. Pack that suitcase, always got those few extra items that are a little excess that you really wanted, but we can get them all in there. We're going to have a great product for it. So that's about where we are. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question for Mr. McPherson. How does the bidding process go? You put out the bids come back, you guys evaluate them as the manager,
Yep.
and then you bring us a name or a group of names.
So for bid package 1, for example, it goes out to bid July 16th. So we've already started, for example, soliciting bidders for that package. Already making phone calls and emailing and talking to qualified contractors who want to bid it. So when that package comes out, that will be published in a number of different areas, but we'll make sure the right people get the documents to bid them. We'll set a bid date, which I think is about the 6th or 7th right now. It may move a day or so. The bids will be delivered here, open publicly. We'll take them back and create a spreadsheet and make sense of it all. that during that time frame between when it bids and the next board meeting, we'll scope all of those subs and make sure they've got a complete package, they've included everything they need to include, make sure they've got all their bonds and all that whatnot in place that they should have in place, insurance. And then we'll make a recommendation to the board for each scope that we put out. So that bid package 1 has, for example, earthwork and storm sewer. Storm sewer? Yes. Sorry. Earthwork, storm sewer, and concrete. So we'll basically have those 3 bid packages, and we'll make a recommendation for each one of those packages to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yep.
Okay, great. Great. Any more questions?
No, I think we hit on it. I mean, one thing I'll say is these guys have been fantastic to work with. Myself, I think we came on board in April. She's not paying me to say this, but we work with a lot of design teams, and it's been a great interaction. And even in the last, we're still working through, even though we're within budget, we're still working through, hey, we get an email probably once every other day, what makes more sense, to use this product or this product? And we go and evaluate it from a cost and time standpoint and provide feedback. So even though we're within budget, we've established that 100% DD estimate, we continually work through what's the best thing to do here. And it's been a success up to this point. It's been very good.
Are y'all gonna go with the pre-crete?
Precast walls on part of the, primarily in the gym, auditorium, music room,
And the pool.
and the pool area, yes.
Okay. Have we heard anything about funding, or, I don't know how to put it, but the wind-resistant area? I know they were trying to see if they could do enough paperwork to upgrade that a little bit.
As far as how FEMA works, they're called FEMA shelters. Unless a disaster has hit in the state of Kansas, how FEMA is funded is it's by state, and pretty much if a disaster happens in your area, then funding becomes available, and it's on a calendar year. So we won't actually be able to apply for that. Again, we've tried 2 or 3 times, and pretty much everybody in the state of Kansas is trying and not getting anywhere because we haven't had any of the Joplin kind of tornadoes that have really brought some of that revenue to that state. So we've tried. We are able to get a wind shelter in there. We're working with our structural engineer, and it'll be wind resistant to 250 miles an hour, which is what FEMA is. Some of the things that are different from FEMA is FEMA does not differentiate between a hurricane or a tornado. So in FEMA's guidelines, it says you have to have emergency power and water, because they're used to people being trapped in hurricane situations for a couple days, where tornado situations is more like an hour or 2. So some of those are some of the things that we've been able to kind of strip back, and we're going to provide a box that will not collapse.
And what's the category, F5?
250 is at 5.
The last time we met, we were talking about F3.
Yes.
And so when we went back and Megan and them started redesigning, they did some moving of the area. A couple of things that come out that got my attention. And first of all, they were able to get what we all wanted. Now, if it's a direct hit, the building's pretty much wasted, but the kids are all alive. That was number 1. But number 2, and this got my attention, was that why would we send 12 to 1,500 students all to one location? And so in the redesign, they ended up at 2, correct?
It's stacked on top of each other, so we have the locker rooms on the lower floor and the wrestling and the 2 health classrooms on top of each other, so that the majority of the kids can just come across on their floor versus everybody converging on one band.
So they can get there quick.
So if you have 15 minutes to get the kids, they're going to 2 locations, that cuts the time considerably in our estimation. So I thought that was good news, actually.
That's good.
Great idea.
Just those walls are about, they're 8 to 10 inches of solid concrete. That's what helps make that FEMA shelter. So that is going to be a pretty safe area.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Just real quick introductions. Sylvia Martin's lifetime Leavenworth Lansing resident, new school board member. Rich Hauber has been on the school board before. He was actually on the board in 2010 when we first started talking with Hollis and Miller. And so they're new board members. Sylvia, Matt McPherson of McPherson Contracting, Megan Warner with Hollis and Miller, later on, you'll meet Greg Porter, Larry Jordan, maybe Kirk Horner with Hollis and Miller. So I apologize, I should have done that at the beginning.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So item 4, budget and school finance. This is an action item. We need to set a date for approving the budget after publication but before adoption. Is this for this school year 2013-14?
For 13-14.
13-14. Okay. I move that we set that date as August 12th at 7 o'clock, right at the beginning of our next scheduled board meeting.
And this is a typical protocol. The August board meeting, there's some statutes that govern when the budget comes out and so forth. You always have to have a hearing. And the final budget, what is that, August 24th, Danielle, when it has to be certified with the county and so forth. So you'll get preliminary information before that budget hearing so you can kind of see it. And then I'll kind of run everybody through a process of these are the forms that tell you the whole story, those kind of things. And so pretty clean.
Did you get a second?
Second.
Also.
Rich? Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good.
Sorry about that. I thought you
It's
already
okay.
had a second.
So application and certification for payment, you can explain that better than I can, Randy.
Well, I wanted to, every time there's a pay application, personally, I like to bring them to the board. It gives the board a good feel for how much money's going out, those kind of things. And then I wanted to do it early because these are going to get really heavy really fast. The money's going to be spent unbelievably fast here for a while. So if you look at this, each time there's a pay application, they must go through it, they notarize it. McPherson will submit it to the architects. They'll go over it and either certify it or not certify it. And then if you'll notice, they have the contract amount and so forth. There, you'll see a retainage. And retainage works in a couple of different ways, but mostly they may not be quite finished with that part of it. They might still be laying some block. Or we haven't had it inspected yet, those kind of things. So you have a retainage there that kind of gives you a safety net, and then you pay that later. And then what I like about McPherson's new software is it actually gives us more itemization in their spreadsheet. And this time it does show the retainage as a percentage, but you can look at each item, and it'll give our board members a sense for what each process, what each part of the project cost. There's going to be so much information by the time we get through this project that it's going to be difficult to keep up with it. But by having this every month, you'll be able to look, and it'll give you a good idea of where we're at in the process. So, and I do need a motion and approval for this pay application.
I move that we accept the recommendation for pay applications as presented.
Second.
Any question or discussions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good. Number 5, building grounds and equipment, includes the community relations report, maintenance director report, and technology reports. Those are informational items. Any questions or comments on those? All righty. Number 6, curriculum and instruction administrative reports. Again, informational. Any questions for Dan or? Oh, all righty. I was going to ask about this. Meeting with the city, I guess did they come up with this date in conjunction with you?
Yes, we've been talking for a few months about getting, a couple of months ago, they had an event that kept them from coming, and August is typically the welcome back and the foundation does some things that, for the board. And so we looked at this date in September. Mike Smith and I like doing it here at 6, and one of our reasons, and we're very open about it, is that at 7 we're done no matter what, because we have board meeting right after. So my recommendation is that we have it at 6 o'clock, September 9th, right before the regular board meeting.
Everybody okay on that? I mean, we're probably off that day anyway. I move that we have our joint City of Leavenworth School Board meeting on September 9th at 6 p.m. prior to our board meeting.
Okay, you said City of,
City of Lansing. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I got confused.
Second.
Any question or discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good. So substitute handbook. This is the new and revised, isn't it?
Dan did an excellent job of putting this together, and I'm sure that he would love to entertain questions about it.
If you have any, there are a few highlights of changes that we did make this year. Cleaned up our substitute contact with Christine Smith. Our late calls end at 10 p.m. and they start at 5 a.m. for those subs coming in. And she also makes those calls throughout the day now. So if she gets a request from the teacher, she tries to fill that as soon as she can. The other thing that we did take out, in the past, teachers took roll and had some access to our student information system that they do not have with Skyward from the change in the program. And so the handbook changed to do that. The other thing that we make sure that teachers and substitutes know, sometimes teachers in their plans, and we'll say this at our opening part, welcome back, and some new things, is that substitutes don't have access and shouldn't have access to teacher files. And we want both groups to understand that. Sometimes teachers leave in their plans, access this on my drive or this part of my documents, and they don't have access to that. And we try to make sure that both groups understand that. Substitute teachers do have access to the computer, and they can log on during the day and do the things that they might need to do. But as through our student information system, they don't have any need to do that. We still take roll with paper and pencil with our subs. The other thing that we changed, we took out, the last thing I would like to point out is your playground safety rules. I always in the substitute orientation that we have for all the substitutes. And I think the kindergarten one is something we all should have regardless. Be kind, be safe, share, and wood chips stay on the ground. So that's the important things in the day, and I don't think it should end in kindergarten.
Any questions for Mr. Dan about that? Anybody wish to make a motion regarding that?
I make a motion that we approve the 2013-14 substitute handbook as presented.
Second? Any question or discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good. So, I move that we enter executive session.
What are we going to do with that?
What? Did I miss something? Oh, I missed. I was looking at it and zoomed right over it. Social studies curriculum K through 5. Vicki, do you want to say something about that?
Well, Dan, you might be able to help me on this. I think we have not adopted the social studies curriculum for 11 years. Has it been 12 years? And so
It's been a while.
Yes, and it's been a long time coming, and our staff, they are very excited about this series.
Looking at the presentation of Vicki, it looks like it's kind of an integrated program, K through 5.
It is.
So that's kind of a nice thing. Any questions for Vicki or about the documents that she submitted? Is 8 sections going to be enough in 5 years?
Well, you might need a new series in 5 years.
12.
So right now, 8 sections is perfect for us.
Okay. I move that we approve the social studies curriculum purchase as presented.
Second.
Any question or discussions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Can I now?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I move that we enter executive session to start at 10 till 8 for a period of 20 minutes to discuss matters of non-elected personnel, matters affecting students, confidential financial data, and negotiations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So I move that we appoint Rebecca Shippers and Megan Bone to the high school social science and math section.
I'll second.
Any question or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. I move that we approve the out-of-district student list as presented. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And then, oh, yours looks different than mine. So I move that we approve the supplemental positions as noted.
Second.
Any question or discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And then the biggie for Deborah. Oh, it's not listed as action. Sorry, Deborah, you gotta wait. I move that we approve the negotiated agreement as ratified by the teachers earlier today. Any question or discussion? By the way, thank you, Deborah. I understand it was a very productive meeting. That's good. That's good. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Anything else, Randy?
Classified administrative
Oh.
salaries.
I move that we approve the classified and administrative salaries as
At 3%.
at 3%.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Very good. All right, the next school board meeting is August 12th, and that's followed by, I think it was September 9th for the joint city school board at 6. So that will be an hour long in this meeting. Any further questions?
I'll go after you. Go ahead.
I would like everybody to think about a school board retreat in maybe September, October timeframe. If you have topics of interest, bring them to Randy. We can do that after hours on a workday. We can do it on a Saturday morning. We can preferably here because it saves us a lot of money. But we can arrange almost any topic. We could have KASB come in and we could teach them something.
Yeah. And what I was going to add to that is take a look at those two websites, kasb.org and then the nsba.org. And if you see anything there you like, or you read about somebody that's presenting and so forth, let us know. Because we can, those folks aren't like Stephen Covey. They don't cost $30,000 for a half a day. There's some of them that are a couple of $1,000s. They'll come in, they work with boards, they're much better than me. Not as good as Dr. Whitlow, but much better than me. They work with school boards all the time. And so if you see something of interest, let us know about it. We'll get it in.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, suggestions? Sign-ups are open with Danielle for KASB programs. I move that we adjourn. Any question or discussions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good.